So this is going to be my keys to victory video for Joseph Parker versus Carlos Takam. And in this video, I'm going to talk about the tactics that I would ask each fighter to employ if I was in their corner. I'll do a full prediction for the fight next week ahead of the matchup, and I'll also ask the team to cover it on Wednesday night's podcast. But yeah, let's get into this. So massive step up to Joseph Parker. I'm really looking forward to the fight. Takam's a more experienced guy than Parker, who's been in at a higher level than Parker consistently. And this is a big step up. You know, Parker, for me, if we're being charitable, he's beaten top 50, top 40 level opposition. Yeah, he's beaten guys on the fringe level. And he's stepping straight up from that sort of level, you know, an aging Cali Meehan, a Brian Minto, that, you know, that sort of level, Bowie Tupu, to Carlos Takam, who in most people's eyes is a top 10 fighter, or if not top 10, then just outside, you know, top 12, for example. So let's talk about it. Let's start with Joseph Parker. What would I be telling Joseph Parker are the keys to victory for him if I was in his corner? Number one, clean work. For me, Carlos Takam is a fighter who at times can smother his work. At times, he doesn't appear the crispest puncher. Sometimes his punches can look slow. Sometimes his punches can look wide. Joseph Parker, for me, is the opposite. Very fast hands, puts combinations together very well, seems to have a natural flow to his work. Now, this is a fight that could well end up going the distance. Most Parker fights end early. This is one that could go to the judges. So, in terms of how Joseph Parker is going to catch the judge's eye, in terms of how Joseph Parker is going to start accumulating rounds and winning the points, I think one of the key ways of leaving a lasting memory in the judge's mind is the clean work. And what I mean by that is punches from range that are crisp, long, clear. And with Joseph Parker's fast hands, those can be extremely eye-catching. Simply put, a straight 1-2 from range at the speed Parker throws it at can be a beautiful thing, and it can leave a lasting impression in the judge's eyes. You know, if Takam's coming forward and trying to close down the range like I expect he will at times in this fight, and, you know, putting on pressure from close range and throwing wide punches that are in any way a bit slappy, and I'm not saying Takam will do that because Takam's very good, but if he does, and Parker's throwing explosive, snappy combinations, those are going to catch the judge's eye. So clean work for me is key for Joseph Parker. And on a related note, the jab, you know, in terms of that sort of clean, crisp work, a strong jab is a key way of picking up points and also of wearing down an opponent. Now, for me, Parker's got a very good jab, but he doesn't always use it. He's a guy who looks for the knockout, and here in this fight, I think it's going to be more key than ever for him to establish that jab, and establish it early and make it the basis for all his work. Because if Takam does fight a sort of pressure fight where he comes forward and he looks to get inside the pocket, the jab will not only be a good way of scoring points and catching the judge's eyes, but it will also be a good way of keeping Takam at that range. So what I mean by the jab, because we know Parker's got a good jab, but what I mean by really using it is, one, the volume. I want everything to come off the jab. I want it to be a jab to be thrown every 5 seconds of the fight. Secondly, double jab. You know, it's a really good way of keeping a fighter on the outside. You know, you throw a jab, good fighter like Takam can go under it, get low, they can slip it. You know, you double jab, and it's a lot harder for them to do. And when we're talking about double jabs, you can change the level with it as well. A guy like Takam, maybe he's getting low, maybe jab him to the chest and then comes upstairs. Maybe jab him to the head and then go down to the body. You know, the jab is going to be so key for Joseph Parker. We know he's got in his locker. Let's see him use it, and let's see him really use it. Let's see him throw everything off it in this fight. You know, let's see a Larry Holmes style jab here. Responsibility, discipline, and defence. You know, Jason Bergman, not a great fighter. Carlos Takam, levels above Bergman. Now, I'm not saying Parker put in a terrible performance against Bergman, because he didn't. But it was one of Parker's lesser performances in recent years, let's put it that way. And at times in that fight, he was a bit defensively open. You don't want to really see a guy like Jason Bergman connecting on your prospect with big counter-punches. So he's got to be defensively responsible for Carlos Takam. And in terms of being defensively responsible, I mean responsible in terms of having his hands tight, you know, and responsible in terms of his legs, you know. A lot of people think of defence as your hands, your head movement. Key part of defence is actually your footwork. It's actually your lateral movement. And with Parker being the naturally bigger guy, with Parker, for me, possibly having the better jab, with Parker, for me, possibly having the cleaner work from the outside, a main element of his defence, I would like to see consistent lateral movement from Joseph Parker, using the size of the ring, keeping the gaps, and really keeping Takam at range. Takam's a good fighter, but I think if this fight is fought at range and using movement and using a jab, I think Parker's athleticism, Parker's hand speed, Parker's combination punching ability is all going to play into his favour. So in terms of the keys to victory for me, if I'm in Joseph Parker's corner, I'm telling him to almost fight in the style of an amateur. I'm telling him to be really technically responsible. I'm telling him to be really disciplined. I'm just telling him, expect this fight to go late. Don't focus on power punches. Focus on winning at least 7 of the 12 rounds. And the way I'm telling him to do that is to get a consistent jab, have a very high output with the jab, using the double jab. When you start softening him up, throwing punches, but throwing your power punches, having softened him up with the jab, I'm telling him fast hands from range, flurries, changing levels. These are all going to catch the judge's eyes. But at the same time, staying on your bike, moving, showing him angles, giving lateral movement, and being defensively responsible and disciplined. For me, those are the keys to victory for Joseph Parker, and will remain very, very significant keys to victory for him as he steps up in level. For Carlos Takam, I think the first thing we've got to say is Carlos Takam is in truly fantastic shape. I have never seen him look so good. If you look at him just facially, you can see that it's a different fighter coming to this fight than what we've seen before. And I'd be telling him to use that. I know Joseph Parker's in good shape, but Parker is always in good shape. Takam here is a new level of good shape. So I'd be telling Takam to try and test the stamina of Joseph Parker. I'd be telling Takam to make Joseph Parker work every minute of every round, to pressurise him, to make him feel uncomfortable, to not allow him the space to move. Joseph Parker is not a fighter who is familiar with going the distance against this level of opposition. I know he's gone late in fights before. I know he's gone late with Sherman Williams, I think. But with respect to Williams, Takam is on a whole new level. So if I was Takam, bearing in mind the experience he has and the times he's gone late in big fights before, and how at times he's shown a very good engine. He, for me, impressed me with his engine in the Mike Perez fight where he won the last 5 rounds. I'd be telling him to test out young Joseph Parker's unproven stamina at this level. I'm not saying I suspect Parker has an issue with stamina, by the way. What I'm saying is, if I was in Takam's corner and if I was trying to maximise Takam's chance of winning the fight, that would be one thing I'd look to say to Takam. Another thing I'd look to say to Takam is, you're a very versatile fighter. We saw you box really effectively in the Povetkin fight. At the time of the stoppage there, that fight was very, very even, and Takam was causing him all sorts of problems, outboxing him from range at times. We saw Takam pour under pressure against Tony Thompson, starve him of air, sit on his chest the entire fight, force him back to the ropes. With Mike Perez, we saw Takam initially trying to box and then trying to adopt a more pressure style later on in the fight. My point is Takam is a versatile fighter. Takam is a guy who can adapt and evolve his game during the course of a fight. And I'd be looking at Takam to show Joseph Parker several different looks during this fight. Joseph Parker, this is a very big step up. And it may be Takam can cause him some problems using his own jab and trying to box from the outside. So I'd start with that methodology, just for 2 or 3 rounds, see what Parker's like, see if you can set a trap and counterpunch him, like Bergman did, see if you can frustrate him from the outside. And then I'd be very mindful of adapting and thinking on your feet and adapting. And if Parker's boxing well from the outside and remaining disciplined, then maybe mix it up. Parker's a guy who's been sucked into wars before, so maybe close down the range, put the pressure on him, sit on his chest, hit him to the body, make it tough for him. Takam's a strong guy. He's a guy who can bully fighters in there and pressure them and force the pace a bit. And I'd be looking at giving Parker different looks. You know, Parker's not experienced at this level. He's a younger guy. I'd try and drag him into deep waters. Deep waters in terms of his stamina. Deep waters in terms of the different styles you're showing him. And let's see how Parker can adapt to an opponent who's doing one thing one round and another thing the other round. Maybe he's boxing on his front foot, then he's going on his back foot. Maybe he's boxing from range, then he's coming inside the pocket. Maybe he's sitting on your chest and throwing body shots, and then the next fight he's throwing a long 1-2. You know, that's what I'd be looking at with Takam. Takam's a versatile fighter, and for me, he should experiment with that in this fight. So those are the keys to victory for me. Takam, most of it relies on the fact that this is a big step up for Joseph Parker, and trying to test him out in ways where he hasn't been tested before. You know, Parker seems to have a lot of natural advantages in this fight. He's the more natural athlete. He appears to be the harder puncher. He may be the quicker on his feet. But Takam's experience and versatility and engine and fitness could be real assets for him in this fight. As for Joseph Parker, keys to victory for me, using that jab, getting that clean work going, start scoring the points early on, use your movement and be defensively responsible. It's going to be a great fight. I'm really looking forward to it. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know what your keys to victory would be. How would you advise both guys? Who are you predicting for this fight? If you've enjoyed this video, do hit the thumbs up button. Help me support this channel and spread my message to a wider group of people. If you're new to the channel and you want to hear the prediction video next week and hear us discuss it on the podcast, etc., hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out the future stuff. Many thanks for watching, guys. Genuinely appreciate it. Have a good one.